There's a word in the streets that carries more weight than murder, more weight than robbery, more weight than any charge a prosecutor can put on paper. Snitch. You can kill a man and still have respect in certain circles. You can rob, you can steal, you can destroy entire neighborhoods. But the moment you sit in a room with a federal agent and start giving names, you are finished. Your reputation, your legacy, your family, all of it gone. And yet, some of the most powerful men in the history of American crime sat in that room. Men who built empires worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Men who commanded armies, men who had entire cities under their control. They gave those names, and they walked out with lighter sentences, new identities, and fresh starts that their victims never got. This is the story of 10 men who chose themselves over the code. 10 empires that fell because somebody talked. And by the time we get to number 1, you are going to realize something that changes how you see all of it. Let's start. Number 10, Fat Cat Nicholls, Jamaica, Queens. He killed his parole officer for arresting him. He killed his ex-girlfriend, the mother of his own son, for spending his money on another man. He killed his childhood friend for robbing the wrong person. Lorenzo Fat Cat Nicholls ran a $20 million a year operation from the back office of a corner deli in Jamaica, Queens, Big Mac's Deli. 300 workers. He bought cocaine from the Italian mafia and product from the Chinese. He was the wholesaler for the entire Southeast Queens drug trade, including Kenneth Supreme, McGriff's Supreme Team. When his ex-girlfriend, Myrtle Horsham, was killed in December 1987, their son, TC, was with her during the shooting. The child was picked up afterward and dropped off in his grandmother's yard like a package. When Fat Cat's own mother, Louise Coleman, learned what her son had done, she disowned him. The woman who had worked in his deli, who had helped run his operation, she was finished with him. And then Fat Cat cooperated with the federal government in exchange for a lighter sentence. The man who had people killed for disloyalty was disloyal himself. The man who murdered a parole officer for enforcing the rules broke the biggest rule in the game to save his own skin. He spent over 20 years in the Federal Witness Protection Program before being transferred to state prison. He was paroled in 2022 after 34 years. Police unions were outraged. Brian Rooney's partner, the parole officer Fat Cat had killed, said, "Maybe God will forgive him. I certainly can't." The streets knew he cooperated. They always know. Number 9, White Boy Rick, Detroit. Richard Wershe Jr. was 14 years old when the FBI recruited him. A white kid from Detroit's East Side, living in the middle of the black underworld. Federal agents wanted a teenager who had access to dealers that adult agents could not get near. They paid him. They trained him. They pulled him out of high school and put him to work as a confidential informant. Somewhere along the way, the informant became the thing he was informing on. White Boy Rick started dealing for real, flying on private jets, buying jewelry, dating the niece of Detroit's mayor, Coleman Young. He was 17 and one of the biggest dealers in the city. When the FBI did not need him anymore, they cut him loose. And when he got caught with over 650 grams of cocaine, the same government that created him prosecuted him. He got life in prison under Michigan's 650 lifer law. Life for a nonviolent drug offense. He was a child. From inside prison, Rick helped the FBI bust dirty Detroit cops in Operation Backbone. 11 officers were arrested. The FBI agent who handled him said he had never seen anyone cooperate like Richard Wershe in 46 years. The government created him at 14, used him, arrested him at 17, used him again from prison, then forgot about him for 3 decades. He served more time than most murderers, for a crime the FBI taught him how to commit when he was a child. Number 8. Frank Lucas, Harlem, New York. Everybody knows the movie. Denzel Washington in a fur coat. American gangster. The man who cut out the middleman, smuggled product from Southeast Asia in the coffins of dead soldiers, and built an empire that rivaled the Italian mafia. That's the movie version. The real Frank Lucas gave up over 100 names to federal prosecutors. His 70-year sentence was reduced to time served. He walked out of prison while the people he named stayed behind bars for decades. Lucas claimed he did it to protect his family. Prosecutors said he had no choice. The evidence was overwhelming, and cooperation was his only play. Either way, the result was the same. Over 100 people went down because Frank Lucas talked. And then Hollywood made a movie that turned him into a hero. Denzel played him with dignity and power. The film grossed over $260 million worldwide. Not one scene showed Frank Lucas sitting in a room with federal agents, giving up the names of people who trusted him. The biggest snitch in Harlem history got a Hollywood ending. The people he named got prison cells. Number 7. Rayful Edmond, Washington, D.C. At 24 years old, Rayful Edmond controlled an estimated 60% of the cocaine trade in Washington, D.C. His crew was responsible for approximately 30 murders. The city's murder rate doubled during his reign. Cocaine-related hospital visits rose 400%. He was arrested in 1989 with 28 associates, 11 of them his own family members. He was flown to court by helicopter every day, and he was jailed at the Quantico Marine Base because the government was afraid someone would try to break him out. He got life. But from prison, Rayful kept dealing. He brokered transactions between Colombian suppliers and D.C. dealers using a coded language, a Philadelphia-based Pig Latin that the FBI needed a translator to decode. He was so good at it that the feds did not catch on for over a year. When they finally did catch him, Rayful made a choice. He cooperated, not once, not twice. 3 separate times he testified against former friends and associates. Why? His mother, Constance Bootsy Perry, was serving 14 years for her role in his operation. Rayful's cooperation got her sentence reduced. He destroyed everything he built. He gave up names, locations, methods, connections, so that his mother could come home. The most powerful dealer in D.C. history became a government asset because he loved his mama. Number 6. Freeway Ricky Ross, Los Angeles. Freeway Ricky Ross was called the Walmart of crack. At his peak, he was moving $3 million worth of product a day through South Central Los Angeles. He was functionally illiterate, could not read a newspaper, but he could calculate drug weights and profit margins in his head faster than most accountants. He started selling cocaine in the early 1980s, and within a few years had built a network that stretched from Los Angeles to Cincinnati to St. Louis to New Orleans. He bought houses in cash. He employed hundreds. He was the single biggest distributor of crack cocaine in the history of Los Angeles. What made Ricky Ross different from every other dealer on this list was his supplier. His main cocaine connection was a Nicaraguan named Oscar Danilo Blandon, and Blandon was connected to the CIA. Blandon was funneling drug profits to the Contras, the rebel group backed by the CIA that was fighting Nicaragua's government. The CIA knew where the money was coming from. They knew it was being generated by crack cocaine flooding black neighborhoods in Los Angeles, and they let it happen. When the operation was exposed by journalist Gary Webb in his 1996 Dark Alliance series in the San Jose Mercury News, it became one of the biggest scandals in American history. The CIA had effectively helped build the crack epidemic that destroyed an entire generation of black communities on the West Coast. Webb's reporting was attacked by major newspapers. He was discredited. He lost his career. In 2004, he was found dead with 2 gunshot wounds to the head. The coroner ruled it a suicide. And when it all came crashing down, it was Ricky Ross who went to prison. Not the CIA agents, not the politicians who authorized the funding, not the men in suits who decided that black neighborhoods were acceptable collateral damage. Ricky Ross cooperated with authorities after his arrest. But the deepest betrayal was not his. It was the government's. The system that supplied him prosecuted him. The hand that fed him slapped the cuffs on. And the journalist who tried to tell the truth about it was destroyed. Number 5. Alpo Martinez. Harlem to Washington, D.C. Alberto Alpo Martinez killed his best friend. Rich Porter was his childhood partner. They grew up together in East Harlem. They dealt together. Along with Ozzie Faison, they were the 3 kings of Harlem's crack era. The real paid in full. In 1990, Alpo expanded to Washington, D.C., where he connected with Wayne Silk Perry, the most feared enforcer in the capital. But his relationship with Rich Porter was deteriorating. Money disputes and trust issues. In January 1990, Alpo shot Rich Porter personally. The timing could not have been worse. Rich's 12-year-old brother Donald had been kidnapped, held for $500,000 ransom. Without Rich alive to pay, Donald was murdered shortly after. When the feds closed in, Alpo was facing the death penalty, 14 counts of murder. He cooperated. He confessed to all 14. He testified against Wayne Perry, who got 5 consecutive life sentences without parole. Alpo got 35 years instead of death. He was released in 2015 and entered witness protection under the name Abraham Rodriguez in Lewiston, Maine. He started a construction company. Nobody knew who he was. And then he started going back to Harlem, driving through his old blocks, riding motorcycles, showing his face in the same neighborhood where he had murdered his best friend and snitched on his enforcer. On Halloween morning 2021 at 3:30 in the morning, Alpo was driving a red Dodge Ram south on Frederick Douglass Boulevard. Someone pulled up and fired 5 shots through the driver's window. He was 55 years old. The ID in his pocket said Abraham Rodriguez of Lewiston, Maine. Rich Porter's niece told the Daily News. We waited for a long time for this day to come. That's why we're out here celebrating, drinking champagne. It's a celebration for Harlem, period. The streets waited 31 years for that celebration. Number 4, the BMF cooperators, Detroit to Atlanta. The Black Mafia family was the biggest black drug organization since the 1980s super gangs. Big Meech and Southwest T, the Flannery brothers from Detroit, built a cocaine empire that spanned 12 states with over 500 members. They laundered money through a hip-hop record label. Drake, Lil Wayne, and Jay-Z name dropped them in lyrics. The brothers fell out around 2003. The split weakened them, and the cooperators moved in. It wasn't one snitch, it was several. Jabari Hayes got pulled over driving a 40-foot motorhome with 95 kilograms of cocaine inside. He cooperated. Omari McCree, a high-level distributor personally favored by Big Meech, got caught with 10 kilograms on Interstate 75 in Atlanta. The feds released him the same day to keep gathering intelligence through wiretaps. He cooperated too. One after another, BMF members flipped. The indictment in 2005 named over 30 defendants. Big Meech got 30 years. Southwest T got 30 years. The empire was taken apart piece by piece, not by police work alone, but by the men who had eaten at the table and then turned over the plates. In 2025, 50 Cent even launched snitching allegations against Big Meech himself. Meech denied it, but the accusation alone shows how deep the distrust runs. Even the kings can't escape the word. Number 3. Frank Matthews, Brooklyn to nationwide. Now here is where the list takes a turn, because number 3 is not a snitch. Number 3 is the opposite. Frank Pee Wee Matthews controlled the heroin trade in every major East Coast city by the early 1970s. The DEA said he handled the cutting, packaging, and sale of product from New York to Philadelphia to Baltimore to D.C. He was earning an estimated $10 million a year in 1972 money. That is roughly $77 million today. He had 2 massive drug mills in Brooklyn, one nicknamed the Ponderosa, the other the OK Corral, fortified with steel walls and armed guards. He organized summits in Las Vegas, gatherings of black dealers from across the country, meeting at the Sands Hotel like a corporate convention. In 1973, facing 50 years, Matthews was released on bail. His bail was set at $5 million, then reduced to $325,000, a mistake the government would regret forever. On July 2, 1973, Frank Matthews was supposed to appear in a Brooklyn courthouse. He never showed up. He took $20 million and his girlfriend and vanished. Completely. No trace, no sightings, no body. The FBI has been looking for over 50 years. He is still on the wanted list. Every other name on this list chose cooperation. Frank Matthews chose to disappear. He chose freedom on his own terms, not freedom given to him by the government in exchange for betraying everyone he knew. Nobody knows if he is alive or dead. Nobody knows where he went. He is the ghost in this story, the one man who refused to sit in that room, the only name on this list that the streets still respect. Number 2. Nicky Barnes, Harlem, New York, Leroy. Nicky Barnes was called Mr. Untouchable. In the 1970s, he ran the Council, a consortium of Harlem's top 7 dealers who divided territories and shared profits like a corporate board. Each member controlled a section of Harlem. It was organized crime at its most organized, a black version of the Mafia's commission, and Barnes was the chairman. He wore custom suits. He drove luxury cars. Nino Brown from New Jack City was inspired by him. He was living a lifestyle most people only saw in movies, except the movies had not been made yet. Then he made the mistake that started his downfall. In 1977, he agreed to be photographed for the cover of the New York Times Magazine. The headline read, "Mr. Untouchable." He was smiling, arms crossed, daring the world to come for him. President Jimmy Carter saw that cover. He was furious. He personally called the Justice Department and demanded they take Nicky Barnes down. A sitting president issued a directive, not because of intelligence reports, but because of a magazine cover. He was convicted in 1978 and sentenced to life without parole. But the story does not end there. From prison, Barnes learned that his wife Thelma Grant was sleeping with his Lieutenant Guy Fisher. The man running his empire was in bed with his woman. That betrayal broke something in Nicky Barnes that prison could not break. He contacted federal prosecutors and he started talking. He gave 109 names in 50 murder and drug cases. He testified against his own wife, his own partners, his own counsel. The organization he had spent a decade building, he dismantled from a witness stand. Rudy Giuliani personally advocated for his release. Barnes entered the witness protection program and vanished. He died in 2012. His death was kept secret for years. No real name on the death certificate, no public funeral, no grave anyone can find. The most powerful drug lord in Harlem history died as a ghost. A president ordered his arrest because of a magazine cover. His wife's betrayal made him cooperate. 109 people paid the price. Number 1. The system. You just heard 9 stories about men who cooperated with the government. Men who gave up names to save themselves. Men who destroyed empires from the inside. But here is the number that changes everything. Right now, today, there are an estimated 30,000 confidential informants working for the FBI and the DEA alone. 30,000. That does not include local police. That does not include state agencies. That does not include the handshake deals and parking lot conversations that nobody records. According to Harvard Law professor Alexandra Natapoff, as many as 4% of young black men in urban centers are actively cooperating with law enforcement at any given time. 4%. If there are 100 young men on your block, 4 of them are talking. If there are 50 in your project, 2 of them are feeding information. Somebody is always wearing a wire. Somebody is always trading names for freedom. 45% of federal drug defendants cooperate, almost half. The snitch stories on this list are not exceptions. They are the system. The American criminal justice machine runs on informants the way a car runs on gasoline. Without them, there are no warrants, no arrests, no convictions. Every empire that rose and fell in the last 50 years was brought down with the help of someone who was inside, someone who ate at the table, someone who knew the names because they were there when the names were being made. The code of the street says do not snitch, but the code of the system says everybody snitches. Eventually, the only man on this list who did not cooperate was Frank Matthews, and he had to disappear from the face of the earth to do it. He left behind his wife, his 3 sons, his mansion on Staten Island. He vanished so completely that 50 years later, the FBI still does not know if he is alive or dead. That is what it costs to keep the code. Everything. And that tells you everything you need to know about why everybody else broke it.